Welcome to the Top Order podcast. It's penultimate week in the IPL. We're going to talk a finals preview as well. RCB's Faf and Kohli went on and on like a train but couldn't make the final four. CSK with Conway and Jaiswal at the top of the order make the final four. GT are still supreme, and we're going to talk Shami, Rashid and the Mumbai Indians, all coming up on the IPL Top Order podcast penultimate week and finals preview. Stay tuned. Well, boys, it is the penultimate week. We're almost at the end of the tournament. I think, have got to call out the elephant in the room. At the start of the tournament, 16 possible predictions in terms of our final fours. The Top Order podcast scored 6 out of 16. So 3 of us had GT in our final four. 3 of us had the Mumbai Indians in our final four. None of us had CSK or LSG in our final four predictions.
Did we all have Rajasthan? I think that's probably a big factor in our
performance. Look, we all had Rajasthan. The bad news to the left-hand side of the table, boys, is that Baldy is the only one really in the mix in terms of a winner. I think for the tournament. So we've obviously got the Gujarat Titans in there, but Baldy's picked Mumbai Indians to win. I don't think any else of us have still got a runner and rider. I went for the Royals. Stu, you went for the Sunrisers, and Raj, you went for the Royals as well. So whilst obviously there's still 4 teams that can win it, Baldy's the only one that can redeem himself with predictions.
I want to push back slightly on that for the listeners and watchers now. That I think we did well, and apart from the Sunrisers, which is obviously my massive fail of the season, I think we did reasonably well in terms of the teams we didn't think would do well. I think that at least the sides that we thought were going to do well, the Rajasthans, RCB, those sides were in the mix until the final day of the season, until the final over of the round robin. So I think in that sense, we've got to give ourselves a little bit of credit, and that probably leads into that final day drama of the round robin.
Yeah, so where do we want to start? I guess with probably not talking about every team that's been eliminated, but I think we've probably got to start with RCB, haven't we? The 2 top run scorers in the tournament so far, Faf du Plessis and Virat. So I think Faf 730 runs at 56, a strike rate over 150. Virat Kohli 639 runs at 53, a strike rate just a tick under 140. And he's come out in the press and said that, people questioning his T20 form, he thinks he's in the best T20 form of his life. But look, I guess they probably just didn't have the backup with the bowling through the course of the tournament, did they?
Yeah, look, that is the obvious point there, is the bowling has let them down. But just looking back historically on RCB, they've had the Chris Gales, the AB de Villiers, the Fafs, the Kohlis, and it's always been, they haven't lived up to their potential with the bat. That is completely not the case here, and that is not the reason that they, everyone's saying that's why they're not winning tournaments, because they haven't executed with the bat. These guys went out there and executed to the fullest, and they just did not have any bowling support at all.
Feels like such a wasted season, doesn't it, for RCB? To get all that production out of your 2 premier batters, you've had, various other people stand up at different times over the course of the tournament, but just not often enough and not enough contributions to get them over the line in, let's face it, 1 game is the difference between being in the final four for this team and looking at what is, I think, probably a letdown season for them. And
probably the biggest thing as well is the way that they've lost those games. They've lost them quite convincingly, even scoring in the high 100s or even the 200s. It hasn't even been close sometimes. They've just cantered home the opposition.
I think we probably should spend a few minutes talking about Virat, because I think we do kind of make fun of him, and I think we hold him up to, like all the great players, you hold them up to such a high standard that basically if they're not delivering on their absolute potential, you're already kind of trying to pick holes in them.
Well, we've done that for the last 3 years, effectively, right?
Because they're so good. But, back-to-back hundreds at the crunch time of the season when it mattered the most. And he's just so good to watch when he's in form. I mean, like I said, we pick holes at him sometimes, but some of the shots he played and those 200s that he scored, just fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, even if you just look at the kind of broad statistics, 8 scores in the tournament out of 14 games, 6 50s and a couple of hundreds. You'd take that as a 2020 player. because your failure rate's so high, isn't it? So, we talked about it earlier in the season. The amount of people averaging over 50, is pretty phenomenal, really, for a tournament of 14 games. And even, we talked about sort of, someone like McCullum averaging around about 30 in T20 cricket. That was a really good benchmark. Mm-hmm. I think when we come to look at GT, only Shubman Gill, I think, is in the top 10 batters. I mean, let's be honest, he's going pretty well, 680 runs. And then he's got 3 or 4 guys, Pandya, I think Saha, and one other that are
David Miller might be close.
Miller's
Maybe
up
not.
there, but
He's more the impact, isn't he?
Yeah, and then I think, all of those guys are sort of 280, 290 runs, averaging between 28 and sort of 40. So it just shows the class of Duplessis and Kohli with that, a couple of hundreds and a pretty good strike rate, right? I don't think we can, on the basis of that whole portion of work, criticise a guy that's, struck at 140 nearly through the tournament with the average that he's put up. Raj, I mean, you love him to pieces, don't you?
Sure, yeah. No, I love him to pieces. I just love watching him when he's in form. He just looks absolutely supreme. And he did that. And the other, if we're just going to keep going back to this, he had Faf. Faf scored more runs than him in the tournament. Look, I just love watching him when he's in form. I think that he has got to have silenced a few of his critics. And, hopefully we'll see him excel on the world stage at the World Cup.
Stuart's been very quiet in this analysis of Virat.
Heavily
criticised by Stu on this podcast.
No, like I said before, he's been fantastic. And I think I don't think we need to talk too much more about him. And I want to pick up on what you said about lost season, because I think the exact same thing applies to Rajasthan, and that, it was perfectly set up on that final day. 3 teams still in the mix for that final setup. Mumbai playing against the bottom side, my failure of the season. The Sunrisers, they go out and win that game. Cam Green, we might get to his performance in a little while, but then you have RCB and Gujarat goes to the final over. They pile on 200, but Rajasthan's sitting there going, well, if we could have won, we could have been in these games if both of those 2 teams had lost, if Mumbai had lost, and even they must be sitting there thinking, 1 no ball. 1 no ball, Sharma doesn't bowl that no ball, and they're in the finals. And I mean, for a side that are looking, we picked on them last week, really piled on how ridiculous it was that they're not in there with all of the performances they've got, the Jaiswal season that they've got, the Chahal season that they've got, the really big performers. It just hasn't come together, and they're going to look back, and I think they should probably look back even more disappointed than RCB.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what for us around the table, who's had the biggest letdown of a season? Has it been RCB failing to make the finals again, or has it been Rajasthan, who 4 weeks ago were riding high and looked like they were an absolute lock to make the finals, even more so than Gujarat, 2-3 weeks ago, and now have fallen away so badly that they've missed the final 4 altogether?
Well, Delhi's also got a horse in that race as well. The Capitals were very poor to start the comp. But look, I think that this is the beauty of the IPL, that we picked these. We've got informed opinions, and we just got them completely wrong. Apart from you're still in the race for the actual championship.
Barely.
But,
yeah, Rajasthan is the biggest disappointment. We all had them, in our final 4. I think, as we said, a couple of us had them to win the tournament. They had an embarrassment of overseas riches to go with some gun Indian players, Sanju Samson, and others as well. But I just wonder whether or not they always got their combinations right. It kind of got late into the season. They started to bring Joe Root in. I don't think really with an idea of what role he was gonna play. He only got one hit. I think
it was almost like they brought him in because they were going so well. They're like, we can have some fun now, and we can bring in Joe Root, give him an opportunity. Rest Trent Bolt, all those kind of things, and then suddenly lost a couple of games,
fell off completely,
and it's really hard to get that momentum back in. It's tricky.
Yeah, and look, I think that was about the combinations that they had, didn't they? Really, with Jos Buttler, Root, Shimron Hetmeyer. They'd got a number of players that were fulfilling a batting role. Paddock didn't really get going either. He had a really good season last year, didn't he? His stats are better than our stats would have been. I'm sure, but I think probably disappointing from his perspective. He didn't kick on from last year, and I think as we maybe talk about the Indian players that have raised their stock throughout the course of this tournament from an India selection perspective, he's probably come back in the pecking order, and guys like Rinku Singh, who I'm sure will come on to have kind of gone up in the pecking order as well.
Why don't we talk a little bit about some of the teams that actually have made it to these semi-finals or playoffs or whatever they're called? I think your point about RCB as well, and that they weren't balanced. It's very clear to me that these top two sides at least are the most balanced in this comp, the GT and CSK. I actually had a bit of a back and forth with someone on, and you're disputing me. You don't think so?
I'm just curious about where the balance comes from in the CSK batting, because it's every time I tune into either this podcast or any of the New Zealand news media, Devon Conway's won another game for CSK and made all the runs. I mean, clearly
That's a little bit more about the New Zealand media, isn't it? I mean, don't get me wrong, he's had a great tournament, but, the leading story Tuesday morning was that Ryan Fox had finished 27th in the PGA.
23rd, I think.
There we go. Well, none of us know.
But anyway, he didn't win it, and he certainly wasn't in the top 10. And it was the sports headline, and that's no disrespect to Ryan Fox.
He's having a great year.
He's having a really, really good year. But keen to get into this, Baldy, because Lippy's cast some shade at you there in terms of
was someone actually? I had a bit of a back and forth with someone on Reddit about this, because I said the same thing about CSK in that I really think they're an enormously balanced side, and someone was like, no, not balanced at all. But you run through that batting lineup, they've got Conway and Gaikwad. Then you go through the rest of their players. They've got all rounders all the way through, right? They've got Jadeja, Moeen Ali, they've got Dhoni. They've got Dubé, they've got Rahane, who's been awesome.
Yeah,
Deshpande bowling. They've got Patirana. They've got
a little bit tongue in cheek.
They've kind of got spin covered. They've got seam covered. If you look at things from my point of view, they've got every box ticked. And actually, in terms of the batting lineup, it's become very clear over the last few years that we've been starting to pay more attention to this. It's all about your openers, right? I mean, it's all about your openers and your finishers. Your middle order, yes, they do contribute throughout the tournament at various points. But if you've got a supreme openers, like you look at this tournament, we've got Faf and Virat, we've got Conway and Gaikwad, Buttler, Jaiswal, Shubman Gill and anyone basically, but Saha did pretty well, Rohit and Ishan Kishan. Like, they're your 5-6 best teams, and they're all there. Like, they're the teams that you look at and you go, those opening pairs are awesome. You look at the rest of the comp and you go, I don't like, these guys are not recognised players, or they're not players that are performing at a consistent level. So, yeah, I think they tick all the boxes, and that's why they're there.
Yeah, I guess the only worry, they have chopped and changed a little bit with that batting order. Moeen Ali's coming up the order on occasions. Dhoni's done what Dhoni does. He decides whether he wants to bat 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9. Probably he's not open.
He just wants to face 4 balls now and hit 2 of them for 6, doesn't he?
Well, yeah, I don't know what his strike rate is, but it would be over 150, I would have thought, throughout the course of the tournament.
It's 190, I think. 190.74. He's third after Rashid Khan and David Visa.
So, as I said, over 150. And I think in terms of them making I think it's the qualifier and the eliminator. They've got 2 bites of the cherry, haven't they? Sort of obviously from that game, which is really good and deservedly so. It's whether or not some of those guys that maybe haven't had a hit throughout the course of the tournament, if they do lose at a couple of poles, then there's a little bit of pressure on those guys that are coming in those middle order roles, and then obviously finishing is a bit of a lottery, isn't it? You could go 28 off 7, like Glenn Phillips did a couple of times throughout the tournament, or you could hit your first ball straight down long on's throat, couldn't you? And that's the way that it's going to go. But they've certainly been quality at the top of the order, that partnership, and Conway just has looked world class all throughout the tournament.
Oh, it's a real treat, I guess, of the IPL that you wake up in the morning and can watch Devon Conway smashing it all parts of the ground, and almost with regularity throughout this tournament.
He has been amazingly consistent. Honestly, I was tongue-in-cheek before, but it feels like that he has performed 10 out of 14 games for CSK and played a significant innings of note.
Wouldn't surprise me. I mean, me and Raj could sit here for... Do we want to spend another 15 minutes on Conway? It's up to you guys. We could do it if we want. We could talk about the consistency of his whole international career. We
just sum it up with he's pretty good, yeah?
Yeah.
He's very, very good. Yeah.
Very, very good.
I think... Go on, Raj?
I was going to say, well, if you're going down the same line, I was going to switch to Gujarat.
I was just going to say on CSK, I think, and you know, we're going to talk about Gujarat, and I think we'll definitely talk about their bowlers throughout the course of it, as well as Shubman Gill and his supporting cast. But Ravi Jadeja as well. Like, you know, we've not really talked massively about bowlers throughout the course of this tournament. 17 wickets at 22, economy rate under 8s in this tournament. He's been, you know, I think arguably their best bowler throughout the course of the tournament. He really is a 3-format, all-round, you know, world-beating cricketer as well. I just love watching him play. Electric in the field as well. He really is that kind of triple threat player from a basketball analogy, I guess.
You see the little interplay with David Warner in the last game with the swinging whatever that is that he does. It's fantastic.
Anyone who takes the piss out of Warner is
Warner
good
was
in my
actually taking the piss out of Jadeja, but
he's
still
actually
very good. He's growing on me, David Warner.
On the down low, he's had not a bad tournament for Delhi Capitals, given how awful they were throughout the course of the tournament. And yeah, look, maybe we'll save it for the Ashes preview, but I'm really interested to see what you think this IPL season's done for him. In terms of his chances of you know, not nicking off to Stuart Broad every
I was going to say, I'm sure Stuart Broad has a bowled around the wicket to him.
Yeah, we're all going to be pretty excited when that happens.
You have to find his strike rate, because I think it was actually ended up all right towards the end of the season there. So
it actually did. Gujarat.
Yeah, just mentioning talking about your batsmen and, you know, talking about both sides of the cricket ball. Their bowlers have been exceptional. Mohammad Shami, probably the pick of the tournament for me, purely for the fact that he took wickets early, he slowed runs down, and he actually allowed Rashid Khan to be an aggressive bowler. They weren't able to just block out his 24 balls. They had to try and score off him, and he really came to the party as well.
That was the real key for Gujarat, really, isn't it? Because a lot of sides, we see it in the Big Bash a lot, is that teams will sit on Rashid Khan and will be happy for him to Daniel Vittoria's way to like 1 for 30 off his 4 overs or something like that. Good
Vittoria reference. I like that.
and then go after the other 4 bowlers, right? But because Shami has been so good, and his, you know, economy has been, what, I think 7.7, something like that, over the course of the tournament. I know I've got it here. By the way.
No, it's
I'm not just making that shit up off the top of my head. He's been so economical that the batters have had to attack Rashid Khan, and it's given Gujarat and Hardik Pandya the leeway and the freedom to be able to bowl him where they want to, not where it's been dictated by the batting side. So I mean, their tactics have been excellent.
Well, and I think he's had to carry that seam attack as well, because if you look through it, it's not recognised names. The rest of the seamers. I mean, Hardik's obviously there, but you know, the rest of them, it's more various other people, Dayal. You know, he hasn't had the 3 or 4 seamers that you might have. He hasn't had kind of the big international seamer to back up it with. So, yeah, those spin stocks have obviously taken a lot of the credit, but I think you're right to point out Shami.
Yeah, and really nice, I think, as well, to see Noor Ahmed as well.
Awesome.
Second half of the tournament. And, yeah, I think we said at the start of the tournament, didn't we? It was good that he'd got his fellow countrymen in the side. They bowl really well in tandem, 24 and 13 wickets apiece. So, whilst I'd say Shubman Gill might need a bit of help with the batting in terms of probably bigger contributions. They look pretty well placed, but I guess we'll come on to that in predictions, won't we?
I don't know that he does need a lot of help if he's going to bat like this. I mean, honestly, a couple of hundreds in this season again. If you look at his social media posts lately, he's got his shirt off, showing off his 6-pack. I mean, it is really the Shubman Gill time at the moment. I mean, we've been talking about him for a while as a, you know, obviously awesome up-and-coming player. It's happening now. It's been happening for a little while. And, I mean, to get 200s in an IPL, there are not many other players around the world that have done it. All the ones that have are big, big names.
And he had an incredible lead into the IPL season with the international seasons that he had, or season he had before coming into the IPL. But yeah, you're right. Scoring, he has literally been that, you know, that figure that they could bat around at the top of that GT innings, and he's just been so consistent. Is that almost a problem? In that if something goes wrong in these 2 games, that they might struggle a little bit.
Yeah, look, I think it's similar to the CSK story with the way that Conway and Gaekwad have gone at the top of the order. I think that is a worry for them. Saha, I think, has continued to open the bat. He's looked pretty good actually. Probably done his international chances no harm throughout the course of this tournament. But yeah, I think that's always going to be a worry going into a couple of games where it is really, every game is that potential banana skin. So yeah, look, whilst they're going to get that opportunity and 2 bites of the cherry, we'll see how that transpires throughout the course of the next 3 or 4 days, won't we?
I don't feel that uncomfortable about them having to go to their middle order, because their middle order's got match winners in it. It's got David Miller, it's got Tuatia, it's got Pandya in it. Like, if that's your 4, 5, 6, then they're in a really good position. They've got guys that can come off in that middle order and win you a match either by batting for 20 balls or for 60 balls, any one of those 3. So I'm not really concerned about their ability to bat deep into their batting lineup. And they've got Rashid Khan, who hit 10 sixes the other day. So if you've got that hanging in the shed, then you're in good shape.
The fact you said match winners just triggered the thought in my head. The other team we haven't talked about, the playoff team, is LSG. Mm-hmm. That is the number one thing that comes to mind when I think of that team. I wrote down my Sanchez hot sauce spicy take of the season is that honestly, the advertising in this IPL is getting
almost
worse,
as good as that.
Worse and
that
worse. Disgusting, really. It's no Mumbai Cements, but player of the week. But we'll see what we can pull out for the rest of the season. But the hot take, I guess, when I still look through that LSG side, and like, none of us had them in our playoff sides, but they've made the playoffs the last 2 years. They're only 2 years in existence. They've done really, really well. But when you look through that lineup, I still don't think they're very good on paper. Like, they, especially now, there's no KL Rahul, there's no Mark Wood. They have match winners, and I think maybe that kind of contradicts everything else I've just said. But they don't look like they have a balanced side at all. It comes down to Marcus Stoinis and Nicholas Pooran, maybe Quinton de Kock
comes off,
going to go bananas.
Yeah.
Or Kyle Mayers even. He's been reasonably good in this tournament.
So you've named 4 guys who've had a pretty good tournament there.
I guess so, but I don't think they've had good, consistent tournaments.
They're not in the top 10 for the impact.
Yeah,
they're not in the top.
One of them goes off and they win the game. And like I said, I'm very conflicted about them because I see the match winners and the match winning potential. Stoinis' innings the other day in the Mumbai game, I think it was, wasn't it? When he just
90 not out, yeah.
Yeah, this is the game we're going to get to in the eliminator. That was an amazing innings, but then you get failures all the way through it, and I suppose that is the way that a T20 tournament goes.
I'll just pick up on that, because Stoinis' last 5 bats have been 0, 89 not out, 40, 4 and 6. Yeah. It's rocks and diamonds, absolute rocks and diamonds. And I feel like that's been the case for a lot of their players throughout the tournament, Pooran included. But they have enough players that one of them kind of... It's a bit like the English cricket team that won all those white ball games. You felt like they had enough firepower in their top 6 that one of them always came off and got an 80 or 100, and that's how they won the majority of their games. Maybe I'm selling that English side a bit short. They're a good side. But
that was Gloucestershire, I think you're talking about. Yeah, back in the 90s.
You're talking about them in the past tense too, but unfortunately I think they still keep winning. They may hold a few trophies.
Yeah, look, I think that the key thing really is, Stoinis comes in 20th on the runs list, but then you've got Mayers straight after him, you've got Pooran straight after him, and then you've got a couple of other guys not too much further down that list. And let's not forget, they left out Quinton de Kock for a pretty decent period of the tournament right at the start. Almost a little bit, I don't know whether it's analysis or whether it's luck or whether it's, a bit of stealth, but there's a bit of moneyball about the way that they've gone about it. They've picked, they've picked their matchups. They've stuck with Mayers at the top of the order pretty much throughout the tournament. There's not many people who hit a cricket ball cleaner than him. He's really good to watch when he gets going. So that they're at the races.
I like how you've whispered that as if it's a secret that only us should. It was really nicely delivered.
What did I whisper?
He hits a pretty good cricket ball, guys. Don't let anyone else know.
Oh, my children are in bed.
Right.
So I'm just trying to keep the voice down a little bit so that I don't get shouted at later on,
cool.
but you guys do for having loud voices.
Okay, cool. That's fine. No problem.
There's a few more things that I want to say, I guess, about the game that they're about to play. But do we have anything else on like other teams that we haven't touched on the wider tournament?
We've got to talk a little bit more about Mumbai Indians. I think
Yes.
they've gone, despite having the song and definitely the cement moment of the tournament and all that kind of stuff. They have sort of been a team that we've talked about a hell of a lot through previous shows. They've always just been in touch, haven't they? And then they've timed that sort of run, and as Raj would describe that Mumbai momentum really, really well into the final stages of the tournament. Only really Sky in the top 10 batters as well. I mean, he's got some pretty good stats, striking at 185 across the tournament, which is Raj Reddy-esque, isn't it, really?
Well, he did a good job as if it was going to be a low strike rate. He got out very early. Yeah. He got there, so, the ones where he scored big runs, he scored quickly.
Didn't waste the balls.
And then, Chawla, who I think, potentially could have been forgotten about, has had a really, really good tournament.
It's been the key to their bowling attack in many of those games.
And then a little bit of mixed, I think, but I've actually been impressed with Jason Behrendorff as well. Probably not high up on the list of Australian seamers when you look at the stocks that you've got, but he's come in and done a really, really important job with that, with that angle, because they had Trent Bolt, didn't they, as a left arm option a couple of seasons ago. They were pretty successful, I think, with Mitchell McClenaghan offering that option. So that they've always had that kind of player in there, and he's fulfilled that role, I think, quite well over the course of the last 3 or 4 weeks of the tournament for sure.
He's had a pretty good tournament, Jason Behrendorff. Not a household name as far as Australian seam options are concerned, but every time he's played for Australia, he's done a reasonable job. Like, he's very workmanlike. He comes in and gives you a workmanlike type performance. But, I mean, you've got to give him a lot of credit here. He's had a really good IPL.
And Cameron Green. So I don't know the answer to this. He's around for the final part of the tournament. He's not got to fly for this World Test Championship squad.
Question. I don't actually know. I assume that he'll hang around. He's on so much money that you'd think he'd have to, but I shall come back to podcast listeners next podcast on that, because I don't have any Cameron Green travel news.
Well, they'll probably know by the time that we're recording the next podcast. So, but look, regardless, I mean, we should talk about his innings. I mean, that was pretty special from him to get that 100. There was obviously a few nerves there at the end when he was, trying to get that 100. They were really working to make sure that he got it. They were in the luxurious position of being able to kind of manufacture someone's individual score when you're chasing 200, because they were so far ahead of the game. But yeah, I mean, those long levers, the Australia's golden boy, he's become Mumbai's golden boy now, eh?
The innings where he's really gotten away in this tournament, he has looked spectacular.
Yeah.
Enough so that I've said that he is a better version of Mitchell Marsh, which Mitchell Marsh stood up and told me was not correct. But he has looked really good with the bat, and he's bowled well as well. What do you think of his prospects, Baldy, in these last 2 games?
In the last 2 games?
I'm assuming they're going to win one and get to the final.
He's become such an important player for Mumbai so quickly, so early on in his career. Yes, he's commanding big money at the moment, but I think he's been almost bought on potential in a lot of sense. Like, they're buying him for year 2 and year 3, but he's given them some real quality this year, Cameron Green. And I think even if he went 0-0 in the two final games, he's had a really, really good first year in the IPL. But now, all of a sudden, Mumbai have made the playoffs. They're playing against LSG. I think it's a game that Mumbai will fancy themselves to win and get themselves to the final. So I think there's a little bit more pressure now on Cameron Green, and I think he's going to have to score runs for them to be a force.
It's a follow-up question. So Cameron Green, they've kind of softly approached him into the national side. In the IPL, they've almost done the opposite. They've put him at number 3, given him some responsibility. What do you think that's going to mean for his international career?
Oh, it's huge for his growth. It's massive for the growth of his game. And he's learned to have to deal with both the highs of, getting big scores. He went for a period there where he got 60, 60, 30, 40, so he was getting consistent scores. But also prior to that 100, he had 6, 2 not, 3 not, 4 not. So he had some low scores there. And obviously there's some not outs involved.
Yeah, but one of them's the failure to win. Him and Tim David are standing there at the final over trying to win that game against LSG and didn't come through.
So you know, look, there's, like you say, there's huge growth in his batting, and he's gone from a guy that I think 2 years ago a lot of people went, oh, this guy's a good bowler. Let's see what his batting can do. Now it's, you know, a lot of people are looking at this going, well, batting is probably his strongest suit. And that if he can give you some overs, particularly in the IPL, if he can give you a couple of overs, then he's done his job.
Yeah, I'm worried about him from an Ashes perspective, and I think, you know, I know we'll talk about this in the lead up, but the fact that you've got David Warner has come into some form in this tournament, I think it just shows that the IPL now can set you up for that Northern Hemisphere summer in terms of form, better than going and playing. You know, for example, you've got a few guys in county cricket. I think that, you know, they're going to be playing on pitches like Roll Snot against, you know, less than great opposition. And I just think that these guys are going to come into the summer and the World Test Championship as well, at the Oval, which should be on a pretty good wicket, I think, in 2 weeks' time. It set them up really well for that. I guess unless he's got the heartbreak of a couple of failures in 2 games towards the end of this tournament.
You can live in hope, Adam. I mean, obviously the conditions are going to be massively different between white ball in the IPL and red ball in the English summer, but the momentum, Raj, and also just that confidence of feeling the bat on the ball in the IPL, I think does wonders for a player's mental state. Feeling the bat on the ball and being able to hit the ball with freedom, not wherever you want, but being able to, you know, express yourself in the IPL does wonders for your mental confidence. And I think that's something that Australia will hopefully take forward into that long series of Test matches in the English summer.
Just to finish up on Mumbai, you mentioned Chola earlier. He got you pretty excited.
He did. He's been great. I think I mentioned him, you know, a few episodes ago and said I couldn't quite realise that he wasn't 45 years old. But yeah, he's been great. Like I said, he's sort of rolled back the years, right? It felt like he hadn't really featured in the IPL for a little while. I don't actually have any of those stats on me, but it felt like he was a bit part player, and now he's the leader of that attack in an attack that. You look at that attack on paper and it's not very good in terms of the experience and stuff that they have and the genuine match winners in terms of the bowling attack. They've piled all those into their batting lineup. But I think he's been fantastic. And I mean, he's going to be pretty crucial, I think, again on in the game against LSG in Lucknow where it's a spinning wicket.
So those two teams will play off. And that's an eliminator, that first playoff game. So the winner of that plays the loser of the CSK Gujarat game. Is that the
let's come on.
CSK's first.
Let's come on.
Can I just throw in 2 tiny things before we do
predictions?
No, before we go into those.
If this is about Rickerson, you can stop right now.
No, it isn't. I'm
looking forward to this. It's betting statistics.
It's some research that I've done that I don't want to go to waste. I have, spent some time, so I do want to actually put it into action so that it doesn't just sit on this piece of paper. But it really just backs up all the talk that we had last week about the IPL hundreds, and we're saying that it seems so much easier, all of that kind of stuff. So this is comfortably now the number one season for IPL hundreds. There has been 11, with Virat and Shubman Gill having 2 each, and 7 others have 1 each with Harry Brook, Venkatesh Iyer, Yashvi Jaiswal, Sky, Prabhasman Singh, Heinrich Klaassen, who I think is probably the only shining light of Sunrisers this season. Yeah. That innings that he scored the other day. Yeah. I mean, he's raised his stock immensely, and then Cameron Green the other day, and yeah, I mean,
and not to forget the 98 that should be 100 as well.
Well, exactly. Yeah, there's been a few 90s that I think probably are worthy of hundreds. So yeah, it certainly has. And last year followed the same trend. 800s. Jos Buttler got 4 of them.
Yeah.
And then you have to go back to 2017 where there were 700s and Virat got 4 of them in his amazing season in that year. But apart from that, it's usually 3, 4, 2. So yeah, it's very, very clear that this year is the year of the 100.
Awesome. Let's come on to the bit of the podcast where anybody with a TAB or Paddy Power account can actually make some serious coin here by going opposites.
Opposites, what we say.
So we were just alluding to it. We've got CSK and Gujarat played today, actually. So that's called Qualifier 1. So they obviously get a second bite, the loser gets a second bite of the cherry. The the winner of that game progresses into, they're calling it the final rather than the dominator or the eliminator or the pizzanator, so that's good.
Original.
Tomorrow we've got LSG against the Mumbai Indians, so I guess in terms of when this podcast comes out, we'll probably be leading into that game. You'll know the result of CSK versus GT. It won't stop us giving some predictions on it. And then on Saturday, we've got the loser of today's game, CSK and Gujarat, versus the winner of the eliminator, if that makes sense, for a route into the final, which is on Monday. So it is predictions time. So let's not go through all the various permutations, but I do want to know who we think is going to make the final and who we think is going to win the final. And it's going to be our last chance to do that because we'll record after the final, won't we? So we'll know whether or not we were right this time next week. We're going to go in reverse alphabetical order this week on first name. So I'm going to come to Raj first.
It's not reverse.
Oh no, sorry. Okay, let's go with
Don't worry, you were telling the story.
It's a hard part of the alphabet.
Yeah.
And they're close together. RS.
Yeah, and 98's worth 100. So let's not go into that too much, shall we? So
Stu, thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's been quite clear that predicting with my head has failed me miserably this season, looking at the Sunrisers lineup, looking at Rajasthan's lineup. So I'm just going to go completely with the heart now, and I'm all on the New Zealand train with CSK. It's I mean, like I said, I actually do think that they've got an incredibly balanced side. They've got all of the players that you kind of want. They've got all the bases ticked in terms of what kind of surface we might get, if it's spin, if it's seam, all of these different things. They've got batters they've got an awesome opening partnership. They've got MS Dhoni to come in and hit sixes when they need, and him to actually control the game, which we've talked about many times. We're not the only ones who have praised his leadership and his kind of tactical nous before. So yeah, look, I'm just excited. Hopefully this time next week to be looking at pictures of MS Dhoni and Devon Conway just embracing, and then kind of just both peering off to Stephen Fleming in the corner, catching his eye and smiling as well. So.
Whilst eating a Marmite sandwich.
I'm not the main thing I'm concerned about is when MS Dhoni's massive arms hug Devon Conway, because we've seen that some of his bones are a little bit brittle in terms of.
What's your bracket look like though?
Yeah, you think CSK go through?
I think
straight from the game.
I think CSK win and they go through, and then they actually go on and win the final. Yeah, the stats kind of don't back that up in terms of when you look at CSK's last 3 games against Gujarat. Gujarat's won all those 3 games. The other side I would back to go through is Mumbai. I think, again, picking with my heart, go Baldy. Just looking at that, same kind of thing. It's the exact same reverse. It's LSG have won the last 3 games. You look back to the round robin game, which was only 5 or 6 games ago. LSG won that game by 5 runs. Very, very tight fixture. They're going to be playing at home with their spin attack. They've got Bishnoi, who's doing very well. Pandya, I do, things that the LSG things that they have done, they're going to be in a position to do very, very well again. But when I look at knockout games, it's about special performances and that Mumbai batting lineup. I mean, there's so many special players in that team, and I want them to go through and win.
Awesome. Raj?
I'm thinking along the same lines, similar lines. So I think that Gujarat will win the, what's it called? The qualifier 1.
Yeah.
So they'll go straight through to the final, and then I think CSK will make it through to the final as well, win their way through, and they will win the final with a Conway 88 at the top of the order.
Pleasant.
Michael?
Well, it's hard to not be on the Mumbai train. I mean, I was on the Mumbai train at the start of the season. I may have got off for a station or 2, but I may as well get back on it now, right? I mean, I've got nothing else to.
You had them as winner at the start.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I may as well stay on that train.
Yeah.
Look, Miami have come from nowhere, and they look like they're going to make the basketball NBA finals from 8th. So
and they start with an M and an I as well.
Exactly. Wow. There you go. So it's
who's
Mumbai.
Who's the Jimmy
Miami.
Butler of Miami?
Suryakumar Yadav.
I like it.
There you go. Boom. Mumbai to win.
And who do they beat in the final?
I think they'll be Gujarat.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's hard to see CSK losing 2 games on the bounce to get eliminated from here, but I think Gujarat are a good side, and Miami have got
Miami.
A lot going for them.
They
As do
probably are
Mumbai.
the Miami Indians as well, aren't they? They've got another franchise over in the US.
I don't know what they are.
I'm sure that they are taking over the world, so
Yep.
no harm in just throwing
Mumbai and Gujarat.
another city out there.
Why not?
Yeah. Okay. Look, I'm going to make it slightly different. I'll probably lean more towards this end of the table than this end of the
fair
table. So I think I've got CSK to win their game tonight. I've got Mumbai to win tomorrow, and then I've got Gujarat to beat Mumbai in the Pizzanator, and then for the final, I have got CSK to win against Gujarat in the final.
3 CSKs a game.
Yeah.
Load up on Gujarat.
So
No one has picked Gujarat. Gujarat, who's at the top of the
It seems
table.
like a big error that none of us have picked Gujarat and that they've been so consistent all year.
I'm doing it purely on the Mumbai thing, but it's hard to see them not being in the final.
So you reckon it'll be one of the 4 that are there?
That are here in this,
Doesn't
I
feel
think it's
win.
probably not going to be anyone outside.
And we've
those
all
4.
underestimated LSG again.
Yeah.
I think they get knocked
There we
out
go.
immediately.
Well, and look, and that's as good a place to leave the podcast as any, isn't it? I think if you're a betting person, get your money on LSG.
Before we leave the podcast, people have got to, watching on YouTube, have got to have noticed that we're in a new studio today, and you've got some paraphernalia on there, some little trophies. Are you not going to run us through? I kind of thought they might be out the front here, telling us.
No,
what you've won. Are they children's trophies?
I was going to say that they're children's trophies, but no, there's a mixture in there. I have had to borrow one just to sort of make a bit of symmetry on there from the last couple of seasons. But that's a little bit of a cricketing paraphernalia. We've got a few books here.
LED
sort of,
lighting. It's key.
a bit of LED lighting, but. Look, let's come back to LSG. Is where your money should be on Paddy Power or Bet365 or the TAB. But it is going to be a really exciting week, as we say. Today is that first game. Tomorrow, LSG, Mumbai Indians. Saturday is the playoff, and then Monday, New Zealand time, is the final. But for now, it is good night and good bless from us all here in Auckland on the Top Order podcast. We hope we've got the predictions right, and we'll see you next week to find out whether we have. Good night.